Hello, fellow readers. My name is Greg, and this is Ghost Readers in the Sky. I wanted to talk today about Owen Wister and his novel, The Virginian. Owen Wister is considered the father of Western literature. Like the Western writers of America, their highest award that they give to writers of the American West is called the Owen Wister Award. He only wrote one novel of the West, The Virginian, and yet it made such an impact that many of the ideas and tropes of what Wister wrote became many of the core things that came in not only in Western literature and writing, but also in film and television. A lot of these stereotypes of the cowboy, you can trace roots back to the Virginian. Owen Wister was born in 1860 and died in 1938. He went to college with Theodore Roosevelt at Harvard, and he had a lot of that same love of the West, or at least of a romanticized West, that Theodore Roosevelt had. Wister did spend quite a bit of time in the West hunting and fishing and meeting native people, both indigenous people and people who had moved out there and been living there as new settlers. He got to explore a lot of the natural wonders, including what was in and around Yellowstone National Park. And in 1902, he wrote The Virginian. The book has a lot of really interesting ideas. Not only is it a great plot and a great story, but it also just has a lot of really interesting thoughts around it. So this is my copy of The Virginian, written in 1902 with illustrations by Arthur Keller. Let me see if I can get one up here. This is the one of the rescue. Let's see if we can see that. Yeah, there we go. So just a half dozen or so illustrations in this book, but it's nice to have the original illustrations that came out when the book was published. So the plot is about the Virginian who is never given an actual name. He is only referred to as the Virginian or the Southerner, or by some title or role that he plays. He is from Virginia. He left home at the age of 14 from a fairly abusive family and came out to the West to make his fortune. And we meet him when he's in his early 20s, and he's been out West and working for a ranch for Judge Henry for quite some time. And of course, there has to be romance. And so there is a new school teacher who's come out from Vermont, who is part of a fairly well-known, is that an aristocratic? Is that the right word? I think so. I'm going to go with aristocratic family. Certainly well-known, well perceived in the community in Vermont, in a really high status, as well as being wealthy. And so we get, as the two of them meet each other, get to know each other, are courting, we get to see some of those differences between East and West, between different levels of wealth, and just different ways of living, of doing things. And there's a lot of fascinating parts there. We focus mostly on the Virginian. While we do spend some time with Molly, the school teacher, we spend a lot more time with the Virginian as he works on the ranch and builds his career there as he takes on more responsibilities. We see him making friends. We see him having some rivals who he has to work with and put up with. We see him involved very briefly in one fight with the Crow Indians. We see a lot of talk about cattle rustlers and other outlaws. There's a lot of talk about the law in general, and what do you do when there aren't nearly enough people to enforce the law? How do you continue to have a lawful, orderly society that you want? It's really quite fascinating to read all of these ideas that were being put together in the very early 1900s, and really just set about 20 years after the events of the story took place. So there's a lot of just straight story that a nice through line that makes sense, but there are also some little excursions, not only to have conversations about society and politics and such, but also just some humor. One of my favorite chapters, and if I understand right, this was written as a short story first and then incorporated into the novel. It's about a hen named Emily and her antics around the ranch, and it is quite humorous until it gets heartbreaking. You may recognize the Virginian from popular culture as well. I think there were 6 films made based on the Virginian, based on this novel, a stage play, and a long-running television series starring James Drury and Doug McClure. And you'll also recognize a lot of the, the saloons and the get out of town by sundown and smile when you call me that, and some other phrases that have become common in Westerns, both in books and on the screen. I hope you have a chance to pick this book up and read it, or read it again. It is definitely a classic of Western fiction, and it is worth reading at least once just to understand where many of the ideas of the Western come from. Thanks for being part of this channel. I appreciate you watching, and until next time, keep on reading. All right, I'm just going to start over. I'm just going to erase this one.